Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to Building a Better America, a small business resource community. A few housekeeping things to go over. The first is that if you have a question, please type it into the Q&A. And the U.S. Small Business Administration does not endorse Public-Private Strategies Institute. This session is being live streamed and recorded. Please do not share any personal information in the Q&A function. And now, I have the honor to introduce Senior Advisor Renee Johnson.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Building a Better America, a small business resource community webinar series brought to you by the U.S. Small Business Administration and Public-Private Strategies Institute. Today, we are happy to discuss community initiatives and uplift small business owners with a discussion covering resources to help your business thrive. We're excited to have each of you here for the U.S. Small Business Administration SBA webinar series, and with our goal today and across a series of events to connect you with small businesses with critical resources and information about the Biden-Harris administration's policy agenda, including how the Inflation Reduction, bipartisan infrastructure laws, and American Rescue Plan create opportunities for small businesses. Let's go to that next slide, please. Today, we'll be convening with leaders with the small business community to celebrate Black History Month and amplify the State of the Union address. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our amazing panel. Let's go to that next slide. We have John Hope Bryant of Operation Hope, Ron Busby, who is the President and CEO of USBC, and Candace Waterman, who is the President and CEO of WIP. We also have one of our amazing small business owner friends, CEO and founder of Wealthy Technologies. So I want to welcome you all to the panel today. Now, I normally would go through and read all of their bios, but I wanted to give them a couple minutes each to talk about themselves. So we'll start first with Chairman John Hope Bryant of Operation Hope.
Honored to be with you. This is a great day. The moment we have here is historic. By the way, I want to commend, I think, arguably the best administrator the SBA's ever had, if not the best, then certainly one of the best. Ms. Guzman, Administrator Guzman, who serves the president in the cabinet as a voice for small business. And I've been honored to travel with her around the country. And I want to also commend my fellow panelists. Busby and the others are noted leaders in this space. I won't take a lot of time, but I just want to say that we're sitting in a moment in history right now. But history does not feel historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. But that doesn't mean the moment is not, in fact, historic. I think this is the third Reconstruction. The first Reconstruction was freedom. That was after the Civil War. Second Reconstruction was access. That was during the Civil Rights Movement. Third Reconstruction is right now, between 2020 and 2030. And that's opportunity for all. And I guess we'll get into a conversation, so I'll stop now, but the biggest surge in business creation or business searches was during the pandemic, 124% increase in business searches during the pandemic. People wanted to be free. They wanted optionality in their life. Number two, the largest group of businesses that surged since the pandemic started were Black businesses. Number three, the largest group amongst all groups that surged were Black women. And behind that, Hispanic women. So 38% increase in Black business creation, 15% in Latino creation. Women were off the charts in leading all of these categories. And we've had more business creation than 2004. We'll get into later what we have done in that regard. Every one of the panelists have done incredible things, but don't let the current moment dissuade you or discourage you. Let it actually encourage you, because rainbows only follow storms. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. The last one was in the streets. It was about civil rights. This one's in the business suites. It's civil rights. And we've got to go from protesting in the streets to cutting business deals in the business suites and raising GDP, gross domestic product, for all, because the new color is not black or white or red or blue. It's green. It's always been green, by the way.
Thank you, sir. We're going to go next to Mr. Ron Busby of USBC.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you, John, for those incredible, profound words leading us off. Again, my name is Ron Busby. I'm the president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc., headquartered in Washington, D.C. This is Black History Month, and I am extremely proud to be joined by the other panelists this afternoon to talk about not just a historical perspective, but as John laid out so eloquently, really what the future holds for Black-owned businesses, Black communities, as well as just Black individuals. The U.S. Black Chamber was founded on what we call our 5 pillars. The first one is advocacy, because understand it is really policy that creates an atmosphere for those deals to be discussed, as well as Black-owned businesses and communities to be able to prosper when deals are being discussed. Our second one is around access to capital. And when you ask any small business owner what their number one concern is, they will say access to capital. But when you talk to a Black business owner, they will say number 1, number 2, and number 3 concerns are access to affordable, available, and accessible capital. Number 3 is after they get the funds and after we create good policy, what are they concerned with? They will say, I need a contract opportunity. And so this administration has really evolved in reference to providing contract opportunities through this infrastructure bill. And today we will talk about how your business can participate and grow through these contract opportunities. Fourth one is around entrepreneurial training. We lost 41% of Black-owned businesses during the COVID virus. That number represents 442,000 Black firms were closed. And when we surveyed those firms, 70% said the reason that they had to close was the lack of information. And so the concept of, hey, we're not acumen, we don't have the acumen, or hey, we're in the wrong businesses, those are all myths. And so as we talk about Black history, we also need to talk about Black facts. And the facts are that our businesses were resilient, and the reason that they closed was a very small amount of money. 70% of them said that the reason that they needed funds was to continue to wait on a contract renewal, an invoice, or just to be able to wait on receivables. $7,500 forced most of those firms to close. And so we're evolving as a community of business owners across the country. But today's conversation will allow you to understand the resources, as well as develop relationships with the panelists, as well as the SBA, to grow your businesses, to get the acumen, the contracts, and the capital that you need to be able to move all of us forward. And again, I want to say thank you to Private Public Strategies, to the SBA, as well as the other panelists here today with me to be able to have this important conversation. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you. Let's go on to Candace Waterman of WIP.
Well, good afternoon and happy Black History Month. I will echo what my colleagues, Chairman Bryant and Ron just stated around the thank yous to the SBA, to PPS, and the honor that should be bestowed upon the administration for their hard work that they are doing right now with moving the needle and really moving the needle for Black businesses. Women Impacting Public Policy, or more lovingly known as WIP, is the leading and largest nonpartisan organization on Capitol Hill for women in business. As Chairman Bryant said, with being nonpartisan, we are not red or blue, we're green, because we care about the bottom line of our businesses and those who support us. We want to ensure that the 12.9 million women-owned businesses have access to opportunities within the procurement landscape, and particularly those Black businesses, because we know that they deal with barriers that are far different than any of our other constituents. You know, it would be remiss in me if I didn't tell you about the pillars also that we stand on, and they can be summarized in ACE, A-C-E. A is advocacy. It's the cornerstone of why we were built over 21 years ago. It was to ensure that women had a seat at the table. And now in our 21st year and in our evolution, it's not just about having a seat at the table. It's about having a voice, understanding the power of that voice, And at this point, quite honestly, if in fact you still won't give us a seat at your table, we will bring our own table and invite you as appropriate to have conversations that are relevant to us for our sustainable health of our businesses. And I will say lastly, because we're going to have a rich conversation, we have to get through and really understand that Black businesses are over-mentored and underfunded. So when we talk about having and ensuring the sustainability of businesses, certainly we have to have the conversation around access to capital and access to contracts, because they are ensuring the true sustainability. So that's the A for us. The C is our community of our women business owners across the country, our partners like U.S. Black Chambers, the SBA, and others who we work alongside of to ensure that we have an ecosystem built that includes all of us. And then the E is education. We want to ensure, if we are advocating on the Hill for opportunities, particularly in the supply chain, that we have the capacity expansion, and then understand what it means to fulfill on those contracts. So I am looking forward to an amazing conversation with my colleagues, and I am turning it back over to you, Renee.
Thank you so much, Candace. And finally, our amazing business owner, Ms. Fanta Gilliam.
Thank you, Renee. Good afternoon, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. As a Black woman founder who's been blessed to be one of the few, 1% actually, Black women to raise more than $3 million in venture capital, I can't tell you how excited I am to share some of the lessons learned that I've had through this journey, chat with you a bit about Wealthy and what we do. But then also to kind of engage with this community around how we can help to grow and scale more businesses, more women-owned businesses, more Black women-owned businesses in particular. And so this is a great opportunity for us. At Wealthy, we're a venture-backed fintech company based in the Washington, D.C. area. We're really focused on how we can partner with large banks, card networks, to really help them to redefine their mobile banking experience in a way that appeals to millennials and Gen Z. I mentioned the venture capital that we've raised, but we've also got our start through partnerships through government contracting. And I'm eager to chat a little bit about that and some of the support that we've gotten through the SBA during this process. So great to meet everyone, and I look forward to the discussion.
Well, thank you all so much. And all of you are doing so much to help Black businesses and just the ecosystem overall. So thank you for all the commitment you have in this space. So I'm going to kick it off with this first question. And I think we could start with the chairman first, and everybody please hop in. But everybody was glued to their television sets on Tuesday with the State of the Union address, which was February 7th by President Biden, who addressed the nation, right, and discussed in the past 2 years a record of nearly 12 million jobs have been created within the last 2 years, which is really the strongest years of job growth in the history, as well as 750,000 manufacturing jobs have been created. And we are seeing the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years, with record low unemployment rates for Black Americans. Want to ask, what are your reactions, and how do you see this as an impact to the Black business ecosystem overall? Chairman, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I thought the president was on point. I thought it was one of his better speeches, period. And I thought that he really nailed it by saying basically we're a capitalist democracy. We are a democracy rooted in capitalism and free enterprise and opportunity for all, and sort of resonating with that brings everybody together. Now, that said, this is not an or a but, this is an and conversation. I do believe that we need to recognize that our royalty in America is small business. That Europe had royalty and we left Europe as a country. And of course, we're built for free. That's a whole nother Black history session we'll do another time. Probably the largest reverse transfer of wealth in American history and arguably world history, because we're the largest economy in the world, is Black reverse transfer of wealth. But we came here and we actually had to create celebrity to replace the bling of royalty, because we didn't have that here. That's where celebrity came from in the US. But the real the real power class is business, and particularly small business, where most jobs come from, most enterprise come. By the way, Operation was founded with a 7J grant of $70,000 in 1992, right after the Rodney King riots, from the SBA. In a bipartisan move between then Tom Bradley, mayor of Atlanta, mayor of LA, and then President George Bush. So bipartisan in every way, because capitalism doesn't have a color. That said, we got to start writing more checks and cashing less. So what you just said was really important. There's a lot of people cashing checks, employees, and that is better for everybody. But the way you build wealth, you make cash during the day, get that dollar, get that money, the things Black folks are obsessed with, getting that bag, we call it today, cash flow. But anybody can go broke, even with more money. You build wealth in your sleep. And you build wealth through investments and asset appreciation and opportunity that, like business creation. We desperately need a generation of Black business owners sustainably who have, as Candace said, mentoring and money, right? It's not one or the other, it's both, because we live in a relationship capital world. Frankly, you remove the mentoring, and then unfortunately the problem you have is if you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. So you can't just hang around broke people. You can't just have a product. You have to have a product, an opportunity, and a customer who's willing to buy it. Thus, it's important that job creation and people can buy your product increases. But we need to be massively, obsessively focused on an obsessive mission, a radical movement of common sense to radically build sustainable Black businesses with more than one employee, who have technology, who have systems in place, who are part of e-commerce, who are part of the future. You can almost quote Dr. King now when he's talking about democracy in the 60s, he said, the world's moving at jet-like speed, but America's moving at horse and buggy pace. He was talking about democracy. You can almost relate a civil rights conversation to a civil rights conversation today and say the world is moving with technology and the economy at jet-like speed. But Black American business with infrastructure and the systems or the lack thereof and the building blocks for sustainability is moving at horse and buggy pace. So we have, 96% of our businesses don't have an employee to speak about. So the employees are not happening at Black businesses. They're happening in the main. We got to have employees at Black businesses and access to capital and technology and information and relationship capital. This has to be a movement that lasts a decade. And because that's where jobs ultimately will come from, and wealth creation are the Black businesses in the community. I hope I didn't over answer your question.
No one can ever over answer that. And sir, you did a fantastic job of giving people the full circle story behind that answer. So thank you so much for that. And I want to bring in Candace into that because you brought something she said earlier about mentorship, which was in her opening remarks. So I wanted to give Candace an opportunity to also piggyback on that too.
Yeah, I mean, I could not agree more with everything that the chairman said, around these statistics and this growth. It's phenomenal, right? And with this changing tide, we now have to ensure sustainability. And I think that's a key component and to this whole conversation is sustainability, because we don't want to just open at faster rates and close at them. We want to open and stay open and build the wealth, right? So when we're really talking about the and the systems and the technology and the understanding and the funding, that's the components of, right, the Black ecosystem of business that we really need to have to ensure that our businesses are sustaining long term. So to your point, Chairman, it's not a conversation of or, it's a conversation of and. It is programming and knowledge and access and mentoring and money. Because again, you can give all the money in the world, but if you don't know how to utilize that, then you're going to keep coming back for more and keep yourself in that borrower mentality as opposed to a lender and a wealth generator mentality.
Yeah, and I want to bring in both Mr. Busby and Ms. Gilliam in this portion of what you just brought up here. Ms. Gilliam, you have raised capital, right, to do your business, and you're working with banks to do so. And then Mr. Busby, you have Buy Black, which is a certification program with USBC that helps business owners who are trying to get into the contract and procurement space, which is an ecosystem itself in creating wealth generation within the Black community. So wanted to see, within those two sections right there, how that is impacted with sort of like this discussion we're talking about right now.
Well, I'll start. And John mentioned a data point of Black businesses growing, but also that Black businesses don't have employees. The one thing that I've seen about this economy in reference to Black people now actually gaining wealth is that now Black small firms are hiring other Black people, and we pay higher rates. We give better benefit factors. We understand that we hire from the communities in which our businesses are located and our families live in. And that is important because you can't just create strong, large white firms and anticipate they're going to hire African Americans or Black people or even subcontract. When we talk to corporate America and we say, hey, hire our Black owned businesses, the answer is, well, Ron, we would do that if we could find them, and if they have eyes in the scale. And so we heard that too often and said, we're going to eliminate one of those immediately, which is we can't find them. And thus we created the Buy Black directory initially that said, hey, if you're a 51% owned Black firm or more, onboard your firm to Buy Black so that you could be found. Then we went on to find out, based upon the President of the United States, for the first time, the country disaggregated the numbers. So we really found out how much Black firms were receiving from the federal government. President Biden went to Tulsa, Oklahoma in 2020 and stated in front of the massacre memorial, where we have a women's business center, that the federal government was spending 1.67% with Black firms. Out of all of these years that we've opened businesses and paid taxes and gone to colleges and created all these great firms, we're still getting less than 2% of the contract from the federal government. And they were saying, well, the reason why is we can't find you. So then we said, well, we'll now start to certify Black-owned businesses. And so in our directory, we have close to 30,000 Black firms that are there and close to 2,500 Black firms that are now certified, which before they weren't. And the reason why that was important is because when we start talking about programs that have moved our communities, they're usually painted under the broad brush of minority programs. And historically, they have not worked for our communities. It has historically been white women that have received 78% of the benefits from minority programs. And so we're saying three things. We want intentionality, we want transparency, and accountability. And this administration has really addressed those three concerns. And as we move forward, you'll see organizations like the ones that are on this panel holding both the federal government as well as the private sector accountable to not just find us, to not just do business with us, but to make sure that we have the resources as well as the funding and education that we need to have the sustainability for our communities and our businesses long term.
Hey, Renee, you've already done a great service already with what Ron just said. Not should the government be held accountable. I should be. We all, Black folks should be. Tell you what he just said. I didn't realize he was doing this. This is fantastic. Identifying these Black vendors. Tell you what I'm gonna do right now. Separate from Operation Hope, I'm the largest minority owner of single family rental homes in America. Half of my contracts go to Black businesses for plumbing, electrical, landscaping, roofing, painting. I mean, all the stuff that you need a high school education and a skill, right? And a defined skill. And I'm gonna commit right now that I'm gonna use I'll tell my team to use a directory to hire more of these vendors to help with these 700 homes that we have. As we grow it, we should be, the more we grow, the more the Black community benefits through social justice through an economic lens. And others watching this should not be saying, what can the federal government do? What can big business do? What can you do? What can we do? We can help each other. It's the James Brown version of affirmative action. Open the door, I'll get in myself.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Can I
totally
piggyback
agree.
on that quickly, Renee? Because
Well,
what you just said.
I was gonna let Ms. Gilliam go really quickly.
Oh, yes, I am so sorry.
Don't worry,
Clearly,
No
you can tell
problem.
we're fired up about this conversation.
and that's why
No.
we're gonna keep this panel just a little bit longer too. So to our other speakers, just verbally putting it out there too, we're gonna take this panel a little bit longer. But don't worry, there's more speakers. Ms. Gilliam, on to you, sorry.
Absolutely. I think everyone is saying exactly the right things. You know, when I heard the president's speech, I was very excited about the opportunities that are there. But I do think there is a little bit of the devil in the details. You know, as a small business owner, as a fintech owner, I don't think it's enough to, I think we need to focus on how these programs are administered and implemented. For example, you know, during COVID, we were doing a lot of work with DC government around trying to connect small business owners to PPP loans, for example. And I was really surprised at how, even though the opportunity was there, the funding is there, many of us weren't ready to capitalize upon it because we weren't credit ready, we weren't investor ready, we didn't have our books in order. I think that financial health, capital readiness is something that we really need to focus on. And I'm really excited actually about an SBA procurement that I just saw that's focusing on that. But I think there needs to be more attention to this, more attention to the elephant in the room, because, you know, it's great to have the list, and I'm actually going to join that list as well, Ron, so I'll keep you updated. We need things like that, but I think we also need to take it a little deeper and talk about the things that are uncomfortable, such as, do I have my paperwork in order to apply for this opportunity? Do I have the right partnerships if I can't do everything myself? And if I don't, how can I get them? Am I credit ready? And have I thought about that? I think of financial health really hurts a lot of us in capitalizing upon this. And then the last thing that I think I really want to focus on is how we can also work more with government to embed more technology capabilities into a lot of these programs. You know, I think there's a lot of opportunities for kind of Main Street businesses, for businesses in the construction space, for example, but I don't see a lot of opportunity for the tech businesses. A lot of the procurement seem to really focus on making sure there's opportunities for industries that are more traditional. But then when you're trying to compete in the fintech or the technology space for procurements or even other opportunities, it's a lot harder. And there aren't as many resources tied to those industries to help us compete with really big players. And so I would love to see more of the mentor protege programs trickle down a bit. And would love to kind of collaborate on how we can also use technology and machine learning and equitable and smart algorithms to match businesses to the right opportunities, as opposed to hoping businesses will find them themselves. I think there's a lot that we can do in those spaces also.
Renee, can I can't let that go by. Because what I heard you say is that Black businesses aren't credit worthy.
I didn't say that.
Don't have the
Capital ready.
We don't have our finances together.
Right.
We aren't smart enough. And let me go back, because we just said that we have 3.2 million Black firms. 3.1 million have no employees. But yet we create a program called Payroll Protection Plan that was there to save the employees and not the employer.
So true.
So it was
That's
bad
so true.
policy. So you can't sit here and tell the audience that the reason that they didn't make it through COVID was because we aren't financially literate. We aren't capital ready. We are. We're the most educated. We have more postgraduate degrees than any of our competitors. What we didn't have is banking relationships. And so I want us to think more about things that we can do amongst ourselves versus saying, okay, that there's going to be this great policy that's created that we should all know about, because we have been hearing that historically. And in the month of February, what I'm not going to do is allow other Black people to say that Black business owners did not thrive and prosper during COVID because we didn't have our finances together. Understand, banks made loans to large businesses. They didn't want to participate in a $7,500 loan because there was no profit there for them. The majority of Black firms needed less than $7,500. Thus, we did not have access to the capital that we needed. And it had very little to do with us not being prepared to go to a bank. We were prepared. Banks weren't prepared to see us and weren't prepared to do that kind of small business loan.
As a banker on the panel, I'll tell you, both of you are correct. We don't have time to get into this, but I'm the guy who's actually directed $4.5 billion of capital in our neighborhoods. I see our people's credit scores all the time.
Thank you.
Some of them are beautiful. Some of them are toe up and the flow up. both are true. Both of what you just said are true. We'll have another segment where we get into the details, I
Well,
guess.
and I'm gonna even stop that conversation now because I feel like that is a conversation that we all can talk about together, because I want to bring this panel back together just for access to capital, because that is an independent conversation that we definitely need to talk about, and credit situation and like credit scores and the creation of it and the value of it. But I want to talk about, and I want to give Candace the moment back too, because I know she wanted to chime in, but going into community navigators, because there are specific programming that was created because of lack of access, resources, and opportunities when we were at the height of COVID and the impact it had to Black businesses. And we wanted to make sure that we had trusted partners in the community. And I know there are community navigators on this panel, whether it's on the first tier through the third tier, that are connecting to resources and making sure that the hardest hit businesses are connected to resources, whether it's through the SBA or other connection points. Wanted to see, are there other ways that we can provide opportunities to give Black businesses access so that we can ensure that we do not confront this issue in the future?
Yeah, I have a couple of suggestions on that as well. I really like partnerships that focus on programs that focus on partnerships. I think that's one of the best ways to really grow your business, to learn from other large businesses and scale up quickly. I think that not enough attention has been made to how we can replicate things like the Mentor Protege program. Wealthy, for example, and I'll just speak from experience. I am a highly educated graduate student. I've worked with grad school graduate, I should say, raised venture capital. But when I first started, I was not investor ready, despite all of the accolades and experience working as a foreign service officer. And so what I did is I partnered with folks in the industry that were willing to work with a Black woman-owned business. And I was able to grow my business that way. We have partnerships with MasterCard and Discover, for example. They have accelerator programs that I think were hugely helpful for someone like me to help me build my capacity as a business, get me into doors that I might not have been able to get into otherwise, because all we need is an opportunity. Once you get me in, I can do my thing and succeed. But it's getting access in through those doors. And sometimes it's hard to do it on your own. And it's okay to ask for help when you need it and be honest about it. And so in doing that and partnering with large institutions, I was able to open doors and grow much faster than I would have otherwise. And I would equate that to what a lot of our other counterparts get through their parental relationships that they might have, or a leg up in certain communities that we don't get access to. I think the government can do more of that. Really pushing large corporations, large banks to have accelerator programs, to match your procurement programs, to do more around requiring minority involvement in some of these contracting opportunities, not just for traditional sectors, but also in high-tech sectors. I think that would be a really, really big opportunity, because expecting a small single-owned business to really operate at that level without strategic partners is really difficult, and you're not setting them up for success. So that's one thing I would suggest, is more of that in using the SBA and other federal government's influence to encourage these large institutions to partner, to buy from, et cetera.
Renee, we were one of the participants in the Community Navigator pilot program. And as a former small business owner, there's a lot of great programs that the federal government, the SBA, EDA, MBDA all have. The challenge is getting that information to the small Black-owned business that's in his community. There's a huge disconnect between that business locally and what happens here in Washington, D.C. And really what the Navigator program was created to do is to make sure that those businesses were getting the information and the resources that was needed. And part of what you are seeing now is, based upon what we heard from John O'Brien earlier, is the expansion and the growth of new Black-owned businesses across the country. As it was just stated, when we know about opportunities, where we know where we can go get information and resources and knowledge, we do. We're a very creative group of business owners around the country. What we don't have is really that connect between that local business and what's happening here in Washington, D.C., or our SBAs or other agencies. And I think this was one of the unique opportunities for those local businesses around the country to really participate in what the federal government and other agencies have for them in their local communities.
Chairman or Ms. Waterman, any way or other opportunities we can make sure Black businesses don't confront these issues that we saw during the height of COVID?
Yeah, first of all, I think, look, a saint is a sinner that got up. No good deed shall go unpunished. The SBA's done a great job. You're still gonna get beat up for not doing enough. And both those things can be true. You can be constructive and constructively critical. Ron's encouraging you to do more, and he's also saying that Congress should have set you up for greater success and all that stuff. And we can always do better. But I want to commend you. I think he wants to commend. All of us want to say, if it wasn't for you, the SBA, we'd all be in a really bad spot. And so we are appreciative that you leaned in, and PPP and the other program where you could borrow money for almost nothing and wait for payments out. By the way, financial literacy. If you applied and got rejected, you still got $10,000 if you knew as a grant, if you knew the questions I asked. So I encourage everybody to go to. We have a partnership with the SBA. Honored by that. Everybody go to Hope Financial. Get a Hope Financial coach. We're in 46 states, 240 offices. It's free, free 99. Get your credit score up. Have a Black folks, hold on now, not PhDs, advanced degrees, have a Black folks, have a credit score below 640. In some places it's 620. You can't get small business credit below 700 because it's considered a risky credit. So that means half of us are locked out of the free enterprise system, having nothing to do with racism or bias. It's just, we got bad credit. We got to get that credit score up. We can help you do that. We're moving credit scores 50 to 100 points in a year to an year and a half. It costs you nothing to do it. We're smart, as Ron said. We got to apply those smarts. Number two, we signed an MOU with the SBA through our 1 Million Black Business Initiative. Go sign up to Ron's deal. Go sign up to with the programs of the SBA. Go sign up to 1MBB. We've signed that. Powered by Shopify. So we're speaking now to Fonte Gilliam's focus on tech. Shopify put up $130 million over 10 years to create 1 million Black businesses. People say these things and they don't really mean 1 million Black businesses. It's almost like a postcard sometimes. I mean it. We've already booked 165,000 new Black businesses created or supported. At least 150,000 of those are created on e-commerce. So now you have a website, a domain name, a payment systems, a delivery system, a product integration system. You have an attorney, a lawyer, costs you nothing. Got some SBA some support, some Operation Hope support, a business plan, and you make a sale and you get a credit line against the sale. To speaking about capital access. So the time is now. The time is now. Don't complain, don't whine, do that later. Get in the game right now.
I think that's a brilliant use of partnership, Chairman. Honestly, that's exactly what I was talking about. What you guys are doing with these corporate partners coupled with the SBA, we need more of that. I've benefited from things like that, and I think that's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. And Ms. Waterman.
No, I would just close with this as we just sort of bringing us back to a lot of the businesses and the questions that I see in the chat around doing business with the government and being government ready. I'm going to go back to several minutes ago when Chairman said he was committing to utilizing businesses in the Buy Black portal. This is a way, right, through the means that he's talking about, a way of getting your past performance, because many of us can't do business with government because we don't have the past performance. And how are we making sure that we have that particular component in place? Because outside of capital, that's another one of the biggest components that we're missing. So I would say these 4 things to a business. 1, know your industry better than anyone else and know where you fit in the supply chain. If you don't know where you fit in the supply chain, you don't even know who your customer really is. Should you be doing business direct with government, or should you be doing subcontracting, which people overlook? The other is, again, the past performance. The systems, make certain that your system's ready. All of those systems, compliance, financial, product, operations, make certain that you have those in place. And then lastly, but certainly not least, is plug into one of our organizations. Ron has programs. I have programs. Chairman certainly has programs. Plug into programs that are existing for your true assistance and access, and not just fluff and conversation.
Wow. Well, thank you so much to this amazing and dynamic panel, which of course, we're going to have to do a round two when we're not going to wait till Black History Month in order to do this. I want to thank all of our amazing panelists here today. And if you want to continue keeping in touch with all these amazing panelists, take a look at the chat. We have dropped in links to all of their organizations so that you can get connected, look at the resources we talked about today. And then also there's going to be a follow-up email that you guys are all going to receive with information about their organizations and how to connect to them. Because again, from learning more about Operation Hope and financial resources and advisors, connecting with advocacy and how to make sure you're doing that with WIP, to making sure you're getting certified and becoming more of a buy Black and using Black-owned businesses with USBC Inc. And then going on to this app and getting yourself together personally so your credit can be good credit, going to Wealthy, well, there you go. Right here, this panel got your life together. You are organized. So again, thank you all so much. We truly appreciate you and all the work you're doing to make sure the Black economy is a better economy and helping to decrease the racial wealth gap. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now we're going to turn to Deidre Spries Henry, who is the, sorry, I'm just trying to get to my note here, who is the administration's senior advisor for COVID relief programs. Going to turn it over now to Deidre. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, what a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous panel. The example of Black excellence. And I have the distinct honor of serving at the SBA as one of the senior advisors to the administrator. I came on as senior advisor for COVID programs and have seen the way that we have needed to respond to a historic moment in our nation's history, and that we've risen to meet that challenge with partners like Chairman Bryant, with partners like Ron Busby, and all the fabulous partners that you had on the panel just before. I want to do this a little bit respondent style and really lift up some of the things that they've said so that you're able to tap in. It's Black History Month, so I am full of joy, full of the full knowledge of what our community has brought to America and the landscape. And it's also State of the Union week, so they have converged in this really beautiful way. I want to first just take you back to Tuesday night and just reiterate just one or two things that our President Biden has said. I was inspired by that State of the Union where he reminded us of the incredible progress that America has made during one of the most challenging periods in our history. And he reiterated his commitment to a unifying vision to get big things done on behalf of the American people. President Biden came into office with a commitment and a plan to build a better America with an economy that works for everyone. And what I love is that his plan is working. It's often said, I love it when a plan comes together. The latest jobs report showed a record 12 million jobs created since the president took office, almost as many jobs in 2 years as any president has ever created in a 4-year term. More than 500,000 jobs created. That's progress moving, y'all. There's a train tracks behind me and the train is moving. That's manufacturing jobs that we're hearing. 800,000 manufacturing jobs created in the last 2 years, a faster recovery than any other business cycle since 1953. This is the part that's really gets me because I spent a lot of my career doing unemployment insurance policy. Lowest unemployment rate in 54 years, just 3.4%. However, in the Black community, unemployment is at 5.4%, another historic low, but it also shows that recovery often lags in our communities. In the Hispanic community, it's at 4.5%. Still near record lows, more Americans have joined the labor force. I want you to know our best days are ahead. We want to make sure that the message of America's historic comeback gets out, and that what's really important for people to know is that this comeback has been fueled by growing economic strength, with our 33 million small businesses leading the way. The president's rescue plan, infrastructure law, CHIPS Acts, and Inflation Reduction Act, all of it helped our economy recover from crisis. And we're laying the foundation for a strong and stable growth. But at SBA, we want Black business owners to be a part of this comeback. Over the past 2 years, we have transformed the SBA to be more customer-centric, technology-forward, and equitable. And the results have been impressive. New business applications soared to historic heights in 2021 and continued last year. Now get this, with a combined 10.5 million new business applications. And those applications were for businesses that wanted to be employers. They want to create jobs. That's since President Biden took office. And that's 70%, at least 70% faster than the historical average. And the face of entrepreneurship is changing. As women and people of color, especially Black founders, are starting businesses at the highest rate, as they have for the past decade or more. Small businesses continue to face challenges in the marketplace, growing threats from climate disaster, global instability, driving up prices and threatening supply chains, and deep, longstanding capital and opportunity gaps persist, limiting job creation and growth for many of our communities. You heard the panel before me really speak about how SBA is partnering with them to get in this space and be a bridge over those gaps, particularly for communities of color. Because entrepreneurship has always held a unique place in the American economy and in the Black community. It has served as a pathway to financial independence, generational wealth, and out of poverty, especially when no other pathway was open. But systemic bias and institutional racism remain a challenge, particularly for Black entrepreneurs. We see this in the data. Black-owned businesses are more likely to stay small. Minority, lower income, and smallest of the small businesses typically need smaller loans. You heard Chairman Bryan address this just minutes ago. And Ron Busby talked to the fact that they usually need around maybe $75,000 or up to $150,000 and under, a product that has decreased in availability across the lending marketplace. And we've seen a 40% decrease, a staggering drop in the small dollar loans and lenders in the past 5 years. SBA is hoping to fill this gap. From 2015 to 2020, just 44% of small firms obtained funds from a bank. More than half had to use personal savings or ask for help from friends and families. And let me tell you, Black entrepreneurs are least likely to have that option. So instead of becoming thriving businesses that grow generational wealth, all of that entrepreneurial energy sometimes just falls between the cracks. And the loss ripples across communities. Morgan Stanley estimates that the opportunity gap from failing to invest equitably in women and people of color amounts to up to wait for it, 0.4 trillion lost every day. That's not about one community or another community. That's about the US economy, end of story. As I said, I came on first to work on COVID programs. What makes me so impassioned is that COVID exposed and widened those cracks. When the Biden-Harris administration took over at SBA, we had seen 2 rounds of PPP fail to reach many of the people and businesses that needed us the most. Only 20% of Black-owned firms that applied for non-emergency financing in 2020 received most or all of the capital that they needed, versus over 50% for white-owned employer firms. We pushed to get those gaps closed quickly. And in the third round of PPP, we made real progress as confirmed by GAO, but we didn't stop there. Last year, we took important steps to close gaps in our capital markets, delivering record levels of 504 loans and SBIC investments. And we finally started to reverse a 10-year decline in small dollar lending. We also expanded key mission lender programs, which helped small disadvantaged businesses. What do I mean by mission lenders? I'm talking about your community bank, your community development financial institutions, your community development corporations, the banker on the corner that understands the community. And so we're increasing the amount of money available through those lenders. We lifted the moratorium on new lenders, which lets us build SBA lending network and the number of loans that flow through it. We also raised the cap on these loans and eliminated criminal background history question requirements. We increased the maximum unsecured amount from 25K to 50K and allowed for automatic approval of credit underwriting alternatives. This was really important. This was work that the Vice President's office partnered with us on, and it was really an exciting time, and the work continues. At SBA, we're rising to meet these challenges. We're implementing transformative changes to achieve the president's goal of building an economy where from the bottom up and the middle out, as he likes to say. The last thing I want to share with you is that we're also reimagining our Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience to better respond to disasters and help communities prepare, mitigate, impact, and survive disruption caused by climate change and other disasters. And we're addressing disparities in contracting, helping more small businesses tap into global trade, and creating pathways to e-commerce and digitization that we know are needed for small businesses to expand locally and globally. I hope you'll join us next month when we launch our second annual Women's Business Summit, where we really will focus on what we're doing with Black women founders and owners in particular, and the work that we're doing with HBCUs and the 146 women's business centers. You've heard on the panel about our resource partners, particularly our community navigators, to help more disadvantaged communities or really underserved and undertouched communities understand where our resources are. I just want to thank you for giving me a moment to share what's happening at SBA. We're just scratching the surface. Renee, you talked about it multiple times. We need to do this again. I hope you'll have me back as we dig into access to capital, because SBA is open for business, and we're here to meet you where you are and to help you get where you're going. Thank you for being the fuel in America's economic recovery and our country's great success story. With that, I'm just going to yield the rest of my time and turn it back over to you, Renee. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deidre. And always you're welcome to be here. We love you. And you fired us up because everybody's like, yes, Deidre, tell us more, tell us more. So thank you so much. Now we're going to turn to James West, who is the Network Engagement Manager, for Reimagine Main Street.
Thanks, Renee. I appreciate it. It's great to be here with everyone today for this celebration of Black History Month. As Renee said, my name is James West. I am the Network Engagement Manager for the wonderful initiative Reimagine Main Street, a project of the Public-Private Strategies Institute. Reimagine Main Street is a cross-sector, multi-stakeholder initiative focused on advancing and uplifting innovative solutions to ensure that small businesses and the people that they employ are at the center of economic recovery and equitable growth. The group includes local, state, and national small business leaders, advocates, and ecosystem participants. It also includes representatives from foundations, corporate partners, and research leaders, some of whom you may have heard speak today. I've served in this role for about a year now, and I've loved engaging with business leaders, business owners, and various organizations with a shared goal of increasing economic equity and for Black business owners and minority business owners. The work we do through Reimagine Main Street supports Black and other minority business owners through generating insights via surveys that allow us to understand the challenges, issues, and opportunities that minority business owners must navigate in order to succeed. We are focused on issues that drive success for businesses and the people they employ, including trust and access to capital and providing good jobs. We believe that transparency, accountability, and dialogue will build an increased ability for minority business owners to succeed. We want to continue to build on this work and push for economic equity for Black and other minority business owners, and you can find more about the work we do at reimaginemainstreet.org. We also want to thank all of the network participants and business owners who are present today. And thank you, Renee. I will push it back to you.
Thank you so much, James. We want to thank everyone for joining us today for our celebration of Black History Month and application of the State of the Union. If you want to get a copy of today's webinar, all you have to do is just send us a quick email to events@publicprivatestrategies.com and we'll make sure you get a copy. Or if you already registered for this webinar, you'll receive a copy of it tomorrow in your inbox. Additionally, this is a live stream on Facebook to the PPSI, Public Private Strategies Institute page, as well as to the SBA page, which is a Small Business Administration. If you have any SBA specific questions, please go to answerdesk@sba.gov and you can submit those questions there. And again, we thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you all next month as we celebrate Women's History Month. So thank you so much for joining us and have a great weekend.
Did you want us to come back or are we good?
Hey, everybody.
Cool.
You all were absolutely